Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we're coming to you from the Grand Hotel because that's where the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce has their annual policy conference. And, when you talk about policy, you talk about the shooters in business, right? So we try to get them on. And I guess we could say we achieved that with you, right?
I appreciate that.
David, it's good to have you on. David Lewis is the president of AT&T. And always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
What's new? What's new?
I tell you what, at AT&T, it's an investment and it's fiber all day long. So what we're trying to make sure we do is bridge that digital divide. We want to be the connector of all Michiganders. So what we try to make sure is that we continue to invest in this state. For the last 5 years, we've invested over 2.4 billion in infrastructure, sustainability, billion with a B. Did I say million? I apologize.
No,
Billion.
you said
I
billion.
did. Okay,
I
good.
just wanted to emphasize.
Exactly. Millions are rounding error based on what we're doing, right? So that 2.4 billion is making sure that we are connecting through our macro sites to our small cell. We're also making sure that our fiber builds continue to move, not just in Southeast Michigan or Southwest, but throughout the entire state of Michigan, including the UP. So what's important for our investment is to make sure that we are connecting with counties and municipalities and making sure that we are exactly where we need to be. We can't we can't get fiber out fast enough, right? The take rate is really high and the customers are really excited about the connectivity that they're receiving. So we're really excited about that.
Well, and I want to say thank you on behalf of the small business community. There are so many communities without fiber and without that connection who are just almost excluded out of what's going on in the state.
That's exactly right. And we have to identify that. That's an excellent point. We're going after BEAD dollars that are federal subsidy monies. That's also $1.5 billion that's coming in from federal government. The way that works is through the My High office, and they do a great job in managing this, is making sure that we're being educated on when these rounds of funds are going to be available. We're going to go after those dollars because what that means is if I'm able to get subsidy in addition to the current investment that we're making and the future investment, that allows me to deploy more, to get out there faster, and to increase the build throughout the state. So as we look for these federal subsidy dollars, it's very important that we make sure that we are exactly where we need to be. So we're hoping that when these dollars come out, we're going to be competitive. We're going to receive the funds that's necessary, attach it to our own investment. And we're looking at larger numbers this time next year when we're going to talk about what we're doing in the state of Michigan.
Okay, so that's part of what you're doing up here.
Yes.
For this weekend, right? Talking to legislators and seeing what can be put where.
Absolutely right. And when we talk to businesses, we talk to residents, but we also talk about first responders.
Yeah.
Our FirstNet network, built by AT&T, is extremely important to make sure that our first responders receive the necessary necessities and equipment and SIM cards and macro site technology and Band 14 modems in police cars. The Michigan State Police we work with and making sure that when they're in rural areas that they do have the connectivity to communicate. In areas where there's more aggregate, such as the NFL drafts, right? You have areas where there's just obviously almost a million people in one area. You have to make sure that everyone has that connectivity. But what's just as important is, God forbid, there be an incident that took place in that high of a volume area. We want our first responders to have priority and preemption in communicating in those areas. So what we try to do is provide our first responders with all the equipment. We just announced another $8 billion investment in our FirstNet network throughout the country to make sure that we continue to build and move our first responders, because if they're protected, they're connected, more people are saved, more lives are saved, and that's what it's all about.
You keep using that B word. It's almost scary for me. I can't fathom what.
You and I both as
That's pretty big.
individuals, but
Pretty big
but you
money.
know what? It's a great point because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
You have to invest in areas where, our Michiganders live, work, raise their families.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we have to continue to sustain that. And that's why I appreciate this administration. I appreciate this legislature for allowing us to have the freedom of investing in areas to make sure that we can invest that type of capital expenditure.
So I want to tell you something that I was on Gretchen's first kitchen cabinet, and she said, "What can I do for small business?" And at the top of the list of 5 things was get broadband to the far reach communities. And there will be a return on that investment because it takes a while for them to grow. But it's expensive to go in and do that.
It's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the monies that I'm mentioning is not something that we're doing because we have it. It's doing because we have to.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a privilege. It's a necessity. And we know small businesses continue to grow. They're the backbone of our economy. You know that better than anybody. And in order to do that, these small businesses have to have the connectivity that's necessary from a Wi-Fi and a fiber broadband perspective. So we want to make sure that we're providing them with all the tools that's necessary, but most importantly, the ubiquitous connectivity in order to do their job and to run their business. Because if they're successful, the economy in Michigan's successful, and then that helps us as well. So
Well, and so it should be, but it is helping a lot in that community, and you're bringing everybody kind of up to stuff. Not to mention what it's doing for telemed and things like that, so that older people who aren't as mobile
that's
can get in
exactly right.
touch with some
You know,
help.
we call it telemedicine. It's the speed of treatment,
Yeah.
right? A lot of the senior community can't drive or get to the hospitals. Sometimes they can't get to the doctor's offices. So there's a lot of online onboarding communication that needs to be taking place as far as consultation. As far as when do you take your medicine at what point in time? Well, if there's a smartwatch that you have, or there's a device that reminds you of that, then that's going to save lives.
Yeah.
You know, blood pressure medicine, the whole nine. So for you to have that, you've got to have connectivity in order to be able to receive that. If you have to have a consultation with your primary care physician, then you have to. Then we have to be able to make sure that you can do that.
David, the fact is, you guys are part of being the first responders. I mean, you really are. You get the communication out there where it should be. David Lewis, president of AT&T, and thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for everything you do.
Thanks for all that you do, and thanks for having me.
It's
Look forward to coming back.
good to spend time, buddy.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.
Thank you.
You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman, coming to you from the Grand Hotel and the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce's annual policy conference. We'll be back with more.